Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Baseball Without Borders, the podcast from the World Baseball Network. I'm Leif Skodnick. Joining me today, Jeff Duda, who writes for the World Baseball Network, covering all things international baseball. You can follow him on Twitter at INTLBaseball24. That's, I think I got the handle right there. And you can follow me, of course, on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, just by searching my name, LeifSkodnick. Follow World Baseball Network. You can search for us, World Baseball Network, 3 words, on pretty much every social media platform out there. Jeff's joining me today. Jeff, an expert in international baseball and everything going on there in around the world. We got some big news yesterday about the Copa America, which is being put together by the WBSC Americas. That's the governing body for baseball in North and South America, and a subdivision of the World Baseball Softball Confederation, the sports governing body worldwide. The Copa America top 12 teams in the Americas are going to play off for spots in the Pan American Games and the Central American and Caribbean Games over the next 2 years. Jeff, we got some news about the tournament yesterday. Hasn't been the smoothest rollout, has it?
It was, Mexico was going to host. First, it was reported it was going to be Venezuela, and then it was Mexico. And then Mexico, passed, basically, and then went back to Venezuela. And, even like information on like how exactly they're going to qualify teams hasn't been very clear at all. Like they said 4 for the Central American and Caribbean games, 5 for the Pan American games. I'm like, how exactly is that going to work? Because majority of these teams are Caribbean nations. So I'm like, how exactly are they going to qualify all these teams for like the Pan American games? That they haven't made that clear at all.
And it basically seems like it's going to be the teams that make it out of group play to the super round are the ones that are going to qualify for the berths in the other events.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't take a team that didn't qualify for the super round. I mean, say Nicaragua finishes 4th in their group. Well, they didn't even qualify to play for a medal, so why should they move on from there?
Yeah. It's been a less than ideal communication of kind of things, and it's almost like they're leaving so much like up for interpretation. But I mean, the actual stadiums, like they actually have probably the best in Latin American stadium in Caracas for the event. But it's still there's still lots, I feel like, to be determined, because Mexico passed and they didn't explain why, and they didn't really explain why they chose the stadium that they originally picked for that, when they could have had other stadiums in Mexico that didn't have, they weren't filled for the Mexican Pacific League during the winter. So it's kind of been a strange process, and it's kind of weird when you announce both groups and then you're like, wait, never mind, let's we're gonna really announce it this next time.
Yeah, it was a curious process because they initially announced El Nido de las Aguilas in Mexicali, which hosted the Caribbean Series last year. I was there. Great ballpark, great city, not too hot in the winter, but a long way from La Chorrera, Panama, where they're going to have the Super Round and the other group play. That's, of course, on the Pacific coast of Panama, quite a distance from Mexicali. Now, Venezuela is closer, but as you mentioned, Mexicali, they have the Águilas de Mexicali and the Mexican Pacific League, or the LAMP, that are going to be playing in the time frame they're holding the tournament. And it seemed Mexicali was an interesting choice to me because you have all these teams that play in the Liga Mexicana, which is the summer league. You look at the Zona Sur in the Liga Mexicana, you have places like Campeche, Quintana Roo, in Cancun, Merida, which hosted the Baseball Champions League Americas in 2023 that I went to. There's a number of places that could have hosted this in their off season that have even warmer weather and are closer to Panama, closer to the other teams. But they picked Mexicali, and then I would bet that the league schedule for the Lamp came out, and then they were like, "Oh, well, guess we can't do that."
Yeah, I think they want this to be like an important event, and then it's just been like, you know, having a rollout like this does not help with that like perception, especially because they announced it's going to be every 4 years, and then now it's every 2 years. So it's like, if you're going to make you kind of official announcement, like you would hope you wouldn't have like so many moving parts, like still to come. And so I'm curious how it goes, but I think it's going to be interesting the rosters for the tournament. I imagine the U.S. is going to send a like pretty weak roster.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit because it's going to be limited to players that are not on 40-man rosters, which it makes it difficult for the United States because most of the best American players are on 40-man rosters. That said, if the U.S. wanted to, they could probably assemble a team as good as any team in this tournament. The question is, will they? Who are some players you could see maybe playing for the U.S. in this tournament?
Um, Honestly, it's kind of hard to say because for this tournament they have no real incentive to send a strong roster because they're likely going to even opt out of participating in the Pan American Games at all because they're already going. They're hosting the Olympics. You know, we know they're going to be in the next Premier 12, so they don't really have much incentive to send a strong roster. Like I imagine they're going to send a lot of like low level prospects. Like you might get like guys like single A, high A, but I don't really think they're going to see like the roster like they had at the Premier 12, where like half of them have made MLB this season.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to see a guy like Rich Hill play in this tournament, I don't think. But,
No,
when I think about the possibilities, like, you think, well, Mateo Hill is out there. Benji Hill's son plays for the Charles de Jalisco in the Mexican League in both the summer and the winter. Was spectacular at the Caribbean Series last year, but he's going to be playing winter ball undoubtedly for the Charros. So is he going to be willing to leave his winter ball team to go play in this thing? I don't know. So you have to kind of find guys that are idle at this time of year, which isn't so easy. And at the same time, for some of these other countries, national team baseball has a bigger meaning in places like Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Curacao, Nicaragua. So, they're going to have some of their best players. Granted, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, a lot of their best players are on 40-man rosters too.
yeah, I
But
think it's Dominican Republic, Venezuela. I feel like that's a tough situation because they said in the press conference that they were going to balance it with all of the Venezuelan Winter League teams instead of having like last time where like maybe one or no guys were coming from a couple teams and like 6 or 7 from another. They wanted more balance, but I don't with the no major league players there. I just think that it's hard to like convince Winter League teams to let their players go because it's like, well, what is our like motivation to
they're
do this?
not gaining anything.
Yeah,
They're
so
just
it's
losing guys for 2 weeks for them to go play in something that's more than a hit and giggle, as they'd say in golf, but less than, it's not the Olympics, it's not the Premier 12, it's not the Caribbean Series. So it's certainly a tough call. Now, one of the interesting things that I did see, and this is more forward looking regarding Venezuela, Omar Lopez wants all of their major leaguers to prep for the World Baseball Classic in the LVDBP, the Liga Venezolana de Beisbol Profesional, which is, of course, their winter league. So that league is going to have probably a good number of major leaguers that are going to be playing in the World Baseball Classic in March, playing in that league. So maybe that will free up some of those guys to play for Venezuela in this event.
Yeah, and especially with them hosting too, they're gonna try to get as much of their quality winter league players who are outside of MLB to play. So I think Venezuela probably have a decent roster. It's just it's gonna be tough sledding to get what they possibly could get. And then Dominican Republic, I don't expect a strong roster from them because they're hosting the Central American games, Central American and Caribbean games anyways. So they're not really qualifying for
They're
anything.
already in.
Yeah, yeah. So they're not. It's just about holding on to a Premier 12 slot. But I don't think they're really of any danger of falling into their qualifiers for that. So I would imagine they probably are just going to send, somewhat similar to the Premier 12 team. They're going to probably find guys from, that are in like the NPB minors or, or guys looking for a contract for next season. So I wouldn't anticipate they'll have a strong roster, but I could see most of the other teams sending strong roster, especially like Panama could be interesting if they could get like Eduardo Tait because he plays in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
He'll probably play in the winter league again, and kind of as a see if guys almost like trying to see if they can get on their WBC team. So I think it'll be interesting for like kind of the smaller nations, but like it's always anybody's guess if major league teams are gonna let their minor league prospects go for a tournament like this.
Yeah, and Panama's in an interesting situation too because their winter league isn't terribly strong right now. They were down to 3 teams. There's a team that kind of isn't functioning right now. So whether the league is working or whether they're just going to put all their best guys on the team remains to be seen. So I think that's going to be interesting. And then Nicaragua actually right now has a stronger winter league than Panama does. Now, I don't think we're going to see Dusty Baker managing Nicaragua in the Copa America, but we are going to see him managing in the World Baseball Classic, and that's a big get for them.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was of all the managers, that was like the most out of left field pick we've seen. Like I was just like, Dusty Baker, really? Wow, I don't think anybody saw that one coming, and just kind of the whole process of how he got selected, and just basically like, if you want to do it, whatever. And then he's
Yeah,
just
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
here's a guy with nothing to prove, and obviously, I think it's in Major League Baseball's interest because Major League Baseball, of course, runs the World Baseball Classic. It's in Major League Baseball's interest to get a Dusty Baker, or like John McLaren managed China a couple years ago. Jeff lives in Seattle. He's a Mariners fan. He recognizes that name. For McLaren to come in and manage China, which is a country that they're in the World Baseball Classic, but they're not going to be a team that's particularly competitive. But to have a McLaren come in and work with their players and work with these kids that are getting experience on something close to a major league level for the first time, I think that certainly benefits baseball in that country. And I think having Dusty Baker, Nicaragua, granted, has a longer baseball history, perhaps than China, but I think they have everything to gain by having a guy like Dusty Baker run their team this year.
yeah. And I think what you see is like you've never seen as much excitement around Nicaragua baseball. Like I think it's just kind of gives a jolt of energy to their national program, and I mean, are they going to advance out of pool play? That would be like one of the biggest upsets of all time. But it's it kind of gives them a nice boost, a nice energy, more people paying attention to them, and they're gonna ideally try to recruit some players of Nicaraguan heritage, and hopefully he can kind of like, as being that big figure, can hopefully get some of them wanting to be interested who otherwise may not have been interested because they're not on the level of like a Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic, obviously.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of excitement in the Nicaraguan community in Miami in 2023 when Nicaragua played in the group in Miami. Real Latin flavor to that group that year with Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and of course Israel playing in that group. But the Nicaraguan community in Miami is sizable, and those folks know their baseball. They were out partying every day, even though their team finished fifth in the group. Just really nice folks having a great time watching their country's team. And granted, they finished fifth in the group. They had to go back and requalify for the World Baseball Classic, but they're in. And I think having Dusty Baker in the manager's office is only going to help them. A lot of good younger players on that team. There weren't a ton of players with name recognition in 2023. Probably Jonathan Loaizaga, the New York Yankees closer, the most recognizable on that roster. But then you had the best mustache in the tournament in Juan Diego Montez. Hopefully he's bringing those handlebars back. We saw him in Japan at the Premier 12. No, it wasn't there that I saw him, but I did see him more recently than that. He still had the mustache going. Quite a good look. So I think they have a lot to be excited about with Dusty Baker coming in there. Now let's head down to Mexico. If you can believe it, the playoffs are already here in Mexico, where they play a 93-game regular season. Not a ton of surprises. The Diablos Rojos win the Zona Sur in the Liga Mexicana de Beisbol. They're about as close to a super team as you're going to see, I think, in baseball. Your thoughts, Jeff?
I think for me, it seems like there's a collision course for a rematch of last year's King Series. Because I don't think anyone is going to be able to knock off Diablos. I think they're they are, really, it feels like a dynasty happening, and they are so far above the rest of the league these last 2 years. It's crazy, and they lost their ace last year, but their offense is just crazy good, and it just feels like like it would take a damn near miracle for them not to win it again this year. And
I think they actually they obviously had a better team last year because they had Trevor Bauer, and they also the interesting thing about the Diablos and their closest rival in the Zona Sur, the Guerreros de Oaxaca, they're both owned by Alfredo Arpelu. Alfredo Arpelu, of course, has the stadium named after him in Mexico City. The Guerreros play in Oaxaca, which is where he was born and raised. So he owns both teams through his charitable foundation. And they faced each other in the Serie Campeonato, which is the championship series to get to the Serie del Rey last year. The Guerreros won the first 3 games. The Diablos won the second 3 games. And then in Game 7, Trevor Bauer came out of the bullpen and allowed 2 hits over the final 4 innings of Game 7. Literally put the team on his back, right? And got the Diablos into the Serie del Rey. I actually think if somebody beats the Diablos in the playoffs, it's going to be Oaxaca. Because so the Diablos, as you mentioned, offensive powerhouse. The Guerreros not far behind them. Diablos scored 688 runs in the regular season. Guerreros scored 686. Slightly better run differential for the Diablos. They allowed 512 runs. Guerreros allowed 546. So, maybe the pitching for the Guerreros is a little weaker. But, I think those are probably the 2 best teams. It's too bad that we're not going to see them meet in the Serie del Rey because they're probably the best teams in Mexico. Now, up in the North Division, we've already had a big upset. In the Zona Norte, the 6th place Charles de Jalisco, led by Benji Hill, upset the Sultanes de Monterrey, the division winner in the regular season, beating them in 7 games. Charros jumped out to a 3-0 lead there. Sultanes won the next 3 games. Charros win game 7. So they kind of steal the top seed for the second round because the Sultanes get through because of the absurd playoff format where a team can lose in the first round and get into the second round. Sultanes won 3 games. The Acereros de Monclova won 3 games. But the Sultanes get through. They have the tiebreaker because they had the better finish in the regular season. Now the Charros get to face the Algodoneros de Union Laguna. But all these teams were separated by a total of 9 games in the standings. And the Zona Norte in the Liga Mexicana really is the trenches. So I'm excited to see the Charros Algodoneros series because there you're seeing 2 teams that finished 4 games apart, basically try and get themselves, 1 series away from the championship. And then in the other series, the Tecos from Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas, and Laredo, Texas, because they, of course, play on both sides of the border, are going to face the Sultanes. They're 2 hours down the road, so it's a pretty local rivalry. I think it's going to draw well. I think it's going to be an exciting atmosphere. Not sure who I like in that one.
Yeah, I think if I was going to pick the series winners, I'd probably go with, I would say I'm going to go with the Sultanes to win. I'm going to go with Diablos, the Guerreros, and Algodoneros. I think those are going to be the winners.
All good picks. The only one I differ with you on, I think the Charros de Jalisco are going to beat Union Laguna. I think it's going to be the Tecolotes de los Dos Laredos against the Charros de Jalisco in the Serie Campeonato in the north. In the south, I think we're going to see another rematch, the Diablos and the Guerreros, for a chance to go to the Serie del Rey. We'll find out how it goes down the road. Quick note, Elian Peña, Mets prospect, signed the second largest international free agent deal of all time. 3 home runs in a game twice already this summer in the Dominican Summer League. And he's 17. How about that?
Yeah, it's I guess there's a reason he got a lot of money to sign. But I can't remember anything like that happening. I know last year, Emil Morales, who had 15 home runs, that was like the second most, I think, in like 25 years in the Dominican Summer League. So, it's guys absolutely going nuclear like that isn't super common. So he's definitely someone who I think he'll be in the complex league next year, but it probably won't be a long stay.
Yeah, I think he's going to go from the DSL probably to, he's not going to play in winter ball. And for those that don't know, the Dominican Summer League is essentially the equivalent of what used to be the Northwest League or the New York Penn League. It's like rookie league ball, short season A. There used to also be the Gulf Coast League, which is now the Florida Complex League. The Arizona Rookie League, which is now the Arizona Complex League. So it's the lowest level of affiliated professional baseball. But Peña, I think we're going to see him probably at the Mets complex over the winter. He's going to get a good look. Maybe he might even get a couple ABs with the New York Mets in spring training next year. You never know, just to see how he does. We saw the Padres do it with Ethan Salas not that long ago when he was a young catcher. And then I think you're right. I think he's probably going to play Florida Complex League next year to start the season. Might not be a long stay. Could see him at Port St. Lucie in the Florida State League come maybe next June or July.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of guys who they don't hit 6 home runs the entire season, and this guy had 6 in 2 games, so that is that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment for those guys to get into a wood bat league where guys are throwing a little bit harder than they've ever seen before, and they have to hit the ball, on the barrel of the bat with a bat that, if you miss the barrel, it's gonna not be particularly responsive. So it's a learning curve, and Pena seems to be picking up that learning curve pretty quickly. So we're excited to see what the future holds for him. Well, Jeff, thanks for joining us. Remind everybody where they can follow you on Twitter, Instagram, and wherever else.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. INTL Baseball 24, and I basically discuss everything international baseball related. Follow leagues all around the world, and if there's an international tournament, I am following it, and especially with the Olympic cycle starting and the World Baseball Classic next year, I will have a lot of stuff on every international tournament going on. So you just follow me there, and you will see basically any international tournament that is going on.
You can follow me, Leif Skodnick, at LeifSkodnick on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. I'm out there. I don't post a ton, and you do have to request me because I don't like dealing with bots and psychopaths, but that's just me. But please do follow me on there. Follow us both, and follow World Baseball Network at World Baseball _ on X. We're on Instagram. I think we're on TikTok. I don't do TikTok. I'm my dance moves sorely lacking. But what can I say? So for Jeff Duda, I'm Leif Skodnick. This is Baseball Without Borders from the World Baseball Network. Until next time, smoke 'em inside.